with ES Windows. I appreciate you carving some time out of your schedules to join us on our presentation, The Ultimate Guide to Protect Your Family During Hurricane Season. We'll get started here in a few minutes. We're just going to give folks a couple extra minutes to log on, and we will get started shortly. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for logging in. We're going to give folks just a few more minutes to log on, and we'll get started shortly. Thanks for logging in. We'll be with you shortly. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for your time. We're looking forward to a good presentation. My name is Jack Redden. I'm the Director of Architectural Sales for ES Windows, based in Orlando, covering the state of Florida for us, and I'll be your guide through the presentation today. There is a chat box where you can send some live questions as we're going, or feel free to hold your questions till the end of the presentation. We'll have some time available for a little Q&A session. So with that, Nicole, please advance to the next slide. So just to review the content, basically our high-level agenda for the presentation today, we'll start out basically creating a game plan for you and your family, what we call an essential hurricane safety tips or best practices to prepare your home and your family for these vicious storms from Mother Nature well in advance of them coming on board. My grandma used to say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So here we're talking about getting this go bag, this hurricane safety bag up and prepped well in advance of hurricane season so that you guys will have it and have that peace of mind. After that, we'll get into impact rated windows and some of the benefits other than meeting building codes and providing storm protection for your home and family. Some other benefits these windows have we'll cover will be security, safety, energy efficiency. The windows of this generation are light years above windows from a generation ago because of some of the technology that we'll talk about and some of the benefits that you guys will see and ladies will see on your energy bills. We'll delve into the science behind that. You also have a lot of different options when it comes to materials for windows and doors on replacement projects. So we'll kind of delve into some of those and compare and contrast the pros and cons of those. And then we'll wrap it up with some good practice strategy as far as seeking professional advice when you're ready to delve into your home improvement project. So next slide, please, Nicole. Yeah, this is a pretty visceral, powerful slide. This is actually, I believe, Mexico Beach shortly after Hurricane Michael made landfall back in 2018. That was the first Category 5 storm to hit the United States, to hit Florida since Andrew back in 1992. And it actually was the first recorded Category 5 storm to hit the Panhandle ever. The thing that was unique about Michael was it really went from a kind of a middling hurricane, like a Category 2 hurricane, to a Category 5 in about a 24-hour period. So it looked like it was going to be, still a hurricane, but more like a Category 2. In a matter of 24 hours, it went and increased wind speeds by over 50 miles an hour and actually made landfall as a Category 5 with wind speeds in excess of 160 miles an hour. And you can see the damage that it did. Very few homes survived up there. So we're actually going to talk about some ways that you guys can get some prep there. First and foremost is to create an emergency preparedness kit. This is going to include a lot of the obviously essentials, things like canned goods, non-perishable foods, obviously fresh drinking water, any medications for yourself or your family that you might need, any first aid supplies, Band-Aid, disinfectant, etc. Obviously flashlights, batteries. It's very common for power to be lost, so you want to make sure you have a way to see around. And certainly any important documents that you do not wish to lose, and cash in case the ATM systems are down. It's always good to have cash post-hurricane. So having this kit ready to roll in advance of these storms coming is going to give you guys peace of mind. And just, again, it's like my grandma said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's better to be prepared and be prepared ahead of time. In conjunction with this emergency prepared kit, you'll also want to develop a communication plan and just sit your children down and your family down and make sure you're all on the same wavelength. It's probably a good idea to designate a central point of contact, someone that everyone can contact to, just to make sure that things are coordinated and that you guys can quickly reunite after the event. It's not uncommon for cell phones to be lost as well. Any kind of evacuation plan, etc. Obviously, the nice thing about these storms, even Michael, we kind of knew where it was going, even though we didn't know how strong it was going to be because it really grew in strength so quickly. But with the advent of satellites and the Weather Channel and news, we know we can see these storms being tracked over weeks sometimes. So just make sure you have that communication plan ready to roll. As far as things you can do for your house and around your house to assist and get prepped for this, one of the big things you can do is actually reinforce any entry points. If you're familiar with kind of the laws of how air flows with houses. If you breach the exterior envelope, like if a front door gets blown in or a garage door gets blown in or a window gets knocked out and wind actually gets inside your structure, what you're effectively doing at that point is doubling your internal pressure. And that during a wind event is not a good mix, because that's how you get things like roofs lifting off of homes and walls literally being blown over. So what we want to do to give your home the best chance of surviving a catastrophic hurricane is keep that exterior envelope from being breached. Well, how do we do that? Well, one of the ways we're going to talk about is installing impact rated windows. But some of the things you could do to shore up what you have right now is two of the weak points typically is your front door and your garage doors. Reinforce those as best you can. We don't want those getting knocked out or knocked in and allowing wind inside the structure. By keeping that exterior envelope from being breached, you are exponentially increasing the chance that your house is going to be one of these ones standing like we're seeing on this picture here. Some of the other things you could do in your yard and surrounding area, some common sense, but it's good again just to keep this in mind is to any overgrown tree branches or tree limbs, you want to trim those back and make sure nothing's hanging over your house, etc. Any dead branches, trim those out and get it all down well in advance of any storms. And obviously any outdoor objects or, lawn furniture, trampolines for the kids, anything outside that could potentially become a piece of flying debris and impact your home and break your windows and allow that wind inside. You want to batten those down and bring them inside if at all possible. Next slide, please, Nicole. So impact rated windows are obviously one of your primary ways to protect against severe weather conditions. I think we're all familiar, for those of you that are logged on in Florida, which is probably most of you, with how strong and powerful these storms can be. Well, the Florida building codes have this in mind, and really kind of the driver for the building codes that we see today. It really all started back in 1992 after Hurricane Andrew, which was another Category 5 storm, made direct landfall just outside of Miami and impacted the Miami metro area, one of the most expensive storms in history. That really was the impetus for the first Florida building code, which came out in 2001. And they update these codes about every 3 years. We are currently on the Florida Building Code 7th edition. That will be getting replaced by and updated by the 8th edition in January 1st of next year. So what these codes do is it creates a challenge for window manufacturers, I would tell you, because we have the most strenuous testing protocol in the country in Florida for these windows and doors. So our design engineers need to develop windows and doors that can literally withstand a 2x4 being shot out of an air cannon at 50 feet per second. After that impact, these units are cycled for 9,000 cycles in a chamber to mimic those pressurized hurricane shift pressures that we see. So these impact rated products have Florida product approvals, and these are the products that your contractor will be installing, something that is meeting or exceeding those local building codes. It's a structural wind load requirement. It's a design pressure requirement. There's water infiltration requirements. The way we as a manufacturer are able to meet these incredibly strict guidelines is through really beefing up the glass and beefing up the frame. So we utilize laminated glass, which we'll be talking about in a little bit, which really does handle some of these windborne debris impacts and allows that glass to stay in the framing. And we also reinforce check rails, jams, etc., to allow minimal deflection of the framing system. So it's really these impact. There's a lot of design and engineering that goes into these impact rated windows that are going to ultimately serve to keep your exterior envelope from being breached. And they are meeting these local building codes. And you know that by those product approvals that your contractor will be showing you. Next slide, please, Nicole. So above meeting the building code requirements, impact rated windows and doors have a lot of other built-in benefits, things like, keeping sound to the exterior. We're going to talk about security now here. I'm an outside sales representative for ES Windows, which I think I mentioned. I spend a lot of time on the road. I like to know that when I'm traveling from home 2-3 nights a week, that, I have some peace of mind that my family is secure at home. How do I know they're secure? Well, laminated glass, multi-point locking systems, reinforced frames, I will tell you, if a burglar comes to a house with impact rated windows, they are going to need a baseball bat and probably 15 minutes of time to get through that. It's not going to be a smash and grab. You're not going to be able to just pop through it and put your hand in and open up the door. It is going to take a lot of time. You're going to draw a lot of attention to yourself, and most burglars would just give up after hitting the window 3 or 4 times with a bat and realizing that that glass is not going anywhere. So that, in conjunction with multi-point locking systems, really help these windows to create a safe environment for your family, even when there's not storms. It's nice to have that security from burglars or other things there. Next slide, please, Nicole. I mentioned one of the other benefits, in addition to storm control and sound and security, is safety. I'm not sure if you guys have little ones like myself, but even for anyone, this is just common sense. If you're familiar with tempered glass, regular annealed glass, when it breaks into very large shards, which can easily cut you or sever a limb or God forbid, even potentially, cost a person their lives. If anyone's ever seen the old movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze, I don't know if you remember that iconic scene where he was battling with the bad guy in that old brick warehouse with those big double hung windows, and he got kind of pushed halfway into the window and the big piece of glass came down and killed the bad guy. Well, I will tell you this, if that was tempered glass, the bad guy would still be alive because it wouldn't have been that large shard that came down. Tempered glass is designed and heat strengthened so that when it breaks, it explodes into these little 1/4-inch pebbles. So it would have rained down small pieces of glass and would maybe have gotten some nicks and scratches, but he would not have lost any limbs or his life, more than likely. So this tempered glass is required by code in certain hazardous locations. Typically, it's proximity to finished floor. So you'll see sliding glass doors. Any glazing that's down to the floor is going to require that, like doors. Even stairwells, stuff like that. So it is required because when tempered glass does break, like I noted, it breaks into those small little pebbles, which greatly reduces the risk of an injury. We also want to have some child-proof features and options. One of the most popular to keep our little ones safe, especially if you have a 2-story home. Last thing you want is for them to open up that window all the way open and fall out, God forbid. So most manufacturers offer what we call window operating control devices, which limit the opening of that casement or that horizontal roller or that single hung unit to 4 inches. So that way children can't accidentally fall out. So it's a nice child-proof feature to keep your children safe on 2nd-story windows and not have to worry about that if they're upstairs playing without you. Obviously, from an egress standpoint, God forbid if you have a fire in your home and you need to utilize a window as a means of egress, you want to make sure that you have easy-to-use locks and latches. So most modern hardware is designed with that in mind. You don't want to have it be, a 3 or 4 step process to unlatch and open these windows. It needs to be easy to grip, easy to open, and easy to exit, God forbid, if you need to during an egress situation, like a fire, for example. So safety is paramount for these windows, and that's how they're designed. Next slide, please, Nicole. Well, we've been talking about some of the benefits of impact rated windows, obviously storm protection, some of the safety and security. Another big benefit is, I mentioned the technology of today and what's been around for the last 20-25 years. These low E coatings, really, if you're replacing windows from a generation ago with just single pane glass, you are going to see significant savings on your HVAC bill. So it's going to cost you a lot less to cool your summer in the summertime, and it's going to cost you a lot less to heat your home in the wintertime if you're up in a northern latitude. Why is that the case? Well, it really has to do with this low emissivity coatings. It's basically microscopic metallic oxide. Typically, it's 2 or 3 coats. And what this does, it's again just some incredible design, is it screens out portions of the sun's energy and reflects it out. So it basically keeps your home cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter, and lowers your heating and cooling bills immensely. Not to get too much into the physics of it and how it works, but the sun throws a lot of energy at Earth. Thankfully, the Earth's atmosphere absorbs some of the more deadly energy like gamma rays and X-rays. Those are screened out by the atmosphere. But what makes it down to the surface is infrared, UV, and the visible portion. So the cool thing about these low E coatings is it screens out most of that UV, but it allows most of the visible portion through. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. It's allowing the visible portion of the solar spectrum through your Roy G. Biv. So it doesn't create overly dark interiors, but it's still keeping the sun's energy out. So it really does kind of have the best of both worlds there. We can do this with double or triple glazing. We can also do this with insulated frames, thermally broken frames as well. Will add to the energy efficiency of this. So we can really get some very, very high performance numbers with these low E coatings and these thermally broken frames and air coatings. Next slide, please, Nicole. So if you are in the market for replacing your windows, it's not unlike any other purchase that you might plan as a family. Whether you're going to a car dealership to test drive a car, cars have their performance numbers, your miles per gallon, your horsepower. If you're going to Best Buy to buy a computer, you want to know what the processor speed is and what the hard drive capacity is. So windows and doors are no different. We have performance ratings as well. A couple of ratings that are not particular to today, we're not going to get into, but we're going to focus in on today on the energy performance ratings. There's a number of these that we're not showing, but the three most important that you'll consider of primary importance are going to be your U factor, your solar heat gain, and your visible transmittance. Without getting too much into the weeds and the technical side, the U factor basically measures the rate of heat transfer through a window. And the lower that number is, it's from 0 to 1. The lower that number is, it indicates that the window has better insulating value. If you're familiar with R factors, which is very common for roofs and walls, U is the inverse of R. So if you're looking at a R5, that would equate to a 0.2 U, and R3 would be a 0.33 U factor. And again, that U factor is very, very crucial, especially in climates where you are primarily using your heater. So certainly outside of Florida for sure, but even northern Florida, it's an issue. I would say for those of you listening down in South Florida, what we call climate zone 1, which is basically your 7 southernmost counties, it's going to be Lee, Hendry, Collier, Monroe, Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade. Those 7 counties, the Florida Building Code actually breaks Florida up into 2 climate zones. So those 7 southernmost counties are climate zone 1. Under the building code, there currently is not a U factor requirement. So what we tend to care about more in South Florida is that second bullet point, which is solar heat gain coefficient. So this is a measure of how well that window is keeping the sun's energy to the outside. And this is really the solar heat gain performance of your window and door. That ultimately is going to equate to how much it costs to cool your home in Florida. So that number is very important all across the state of Florida. That is also on a scale from 0 to 1. The lower that solar heat gain coefficient, the better it is of keeping that heat gain on the outside. So we're looking for lower numbers there. The last bullet there, visible transmittance. This is really going to come down to just a personal preference for your family, for what you want there. We offer a wide variety of different tinted substrates like bronze and gray and greens and blues, etc. When you use a tint, you are lowering your visible transmittance and creating darker interiors. So just keep that in mind. It'll be a darker interior. Sometimes it's an aesthetic choice. Sometimes you need to have that to meet what we call turtle code. So if you're living in a coastal area, there's more than a good chance that you may need to have any replacement glazing have that visible transmittance below a certain threshold. So that's also on a scale from 0 to 1. If you're in a turtle code area, we need to have that visible transmittance be a 0.45 or lower. And again, don't panic about any of this stuff. We have window professionals that will make sure you're in compliance. But if you are in a turtle code area, you need to make sure that any replacement glazing facing the ocean is meeting that 0.45 or lower. Where that really comes to do with is sea turtles use the moon to navigate, and obviously in coastal areas where there's residential homes, sometimes the light coming from these homes can confuse these sea turtles and get them disoriented so that they actually go away from the water and die instead of towards the water. So there's some regulations on the books in most coastal areas that require any glazing be of that 0.45 or less there. So next slide, please, Nicole. As I mentioned kind of in the overview agenda, there are several different types of materials that you can choose if you're looking at replacement windows for your home. Wood does have some natural beauty and a very historic flair to it. I will say in the state of Florida, it's going to be a challenge to maintain it and to paint it with the UV out there. Vinyl is another option. It does have some good thermal properties. It doesn't, conduct heat and cold at all. It's impervious to moisture and salt spray, stuff like that. But if it's not a high quality extrusion that has titanium dioxide into it, it is susceptible to UV exposure. And I will say that vinyl does expand and contract a good bit more than aluminum does. So if you've ever looked at a vinyl window and you've looked at the corners where the stiles and rails join, you'll notice that it's actually welded together. Aesthetically, folks don't like to see that weld joint, but the reason most manufacturers have to do that is because they can't just mechanically fasten that corner because vinyl expands and contracts so much in relation to temperature extremes. They need to weld that corner so that it doesn't separate and so that water can't get into the system there. Fiberglass is another material option, either on its own or as a composite. With some benefits, again, good coastal properties, and then aluminum really has, for my money, the best bang for the buck. If you look at aluminum from a strength standpoint, it really has an unsurpassed strength to weight ratio. So it is as strong as steel in many properties, such as tensile strength, but it's about a third the weight of steel. So what that means for homeowners like you, if you choose aluminum as a material, it's going to allow us to hit very high structural wind loads. The higher that design pressure, the safer your home is going to be during a storm, the better the water resistance is going to be, the less deflection of the flame. So it'll remain tight tolerances with weather stripping. It also means that we can use narrower profiles. So from an aesthetic standpoint, aluminum frames on average tend to be less bulky than wood or vinyl. So it's a very common contemporary modern design trend that folks don't want to see big bulky frames of windows. They want narrow frames and maximum glass. And if you got a beautiful view of the Atlantic Ocean or the Gulf Coast, you don't want to see big bulky frames. You want glass. You want to be able to see that actual view. So aluminum does have some benefits as far as that strength, and that corresponding strength allows us to use narrower profiles to maximize your view out of there. It's also available with high performance finishes like a Kynar, which does very, very well in coastal applications. Our standard warranty can be upgraded to a 20-year warranty with that finish. So all these materials have benefits and disadvantages, but aluminum for sure, I think, is the total package. Next slide, please, Nicole. So obviously we've covered a lot of information. Consumers these days are armed with the internet, so I'm sure a lot of you know a lot about Windows, certainly more than a generation ago, but it's still very, very daunting if you are considering a home improvement project and to replace your windows and update them with impact windows. We strongly advise that you seek professional advice. Things like building a permit, they can handle that. Ensuring, that it's meeting and complying with any local regulations, including turtle code, the minimum design pressure requirements, etc. They can do that. They can also offer you some design suggestions. You can go in and take a look at samples and see how this stuff looks. You want to see what a black frame window looks like versus a white versus a silver. You can go see samples of this, touch it, feel it, and get a sense for, aesthetically what options you have for the frames, frame colors, glass, hardware, etc. So we strongly recommend that you consult a window professional or an installer contractor to basically get advice and help coordinate your installation project. Next slide, please, Nicole. So in conclusion, we hope that you'll prioritize impact resistance. It has a lot of built-in benefits that we've highlighted throughout the presentation, as far as not just the impact resistance to meet storm, but for safety, security, and energy efficiencies, a lot of benefits to replacing your windows. We encourage you to make an informed decision based on your budget and needs. Certainly, our window professionals that offer installation can be a benefit there as far as developing budgets for you. And let's face it, that last bullet says it all. For most of us, unless you have a 100-foot yacht, for most of us, your home is going to be the biggest single purchase of your lifetime. It will pay you to look after that investment and invest in that home, to beautify it, to make it safe, to strengthen it for storms and security, and to ultimately lower your energy bill. So it's a good long-term investment to possibly consider your next home improvement project to be replacing your fenestration to impact rated windows. Next slide, please, Nicole. So this is actually our last slide. This is actually my contact information. As noted, I'm the Director of Architectural Sales. I'm available via phone, text, email, anytime to answer your questions. There's also a QR code there that I would encourage you to scan. It's actually a new page that we developed for Florida. We're actually running a promotion, which we could probably speak to a little bit here. It's a 5% promo discount, and it's also basically a way for you to put some information in and have an installation professional contact you to basically set up a no obligation, absolutely free estimate for someone to come out to your home, take some preliminary measurements, discuss any design options and aesthetic preferences that you might have, and basically provide you a free, no obligation quote to upgrade your windows to impact rated windows. So on that note, that is the actual end of the presentation. I wanted to thank you all for attending and spending a little bit of time with us here today. Again, I'm available after the presentation via any of these contact methods to answer your questions. But if there's any live questions, we'll do our best. We're not technically savvy, but we'll do our best to field any live questions that might come up. Nicole, do you see any questions that have come in on the chat box? Okay, well, it sounds like we have not had any questions submitted. So if that's the case, again, I'd like to thank you all for your time and attention, and encourage you to scan that code and reach out to our team. We'd love to consult with you on your next product to look at replacement windows. Thank you again for your time. Appreciate it.